The 3 moons of Lumeris hung low in the twilight sky, casting a spectral, silver-blue glow over the canopy of the Whisperwood. It was a light that did not merely illuminate. It seemed to hum a low-frequency vibration that rattled the teeth of anyone not born to this soil. For the Lupin, the wolf people who dominated this world, the triple moonlight was a source of power, a battery for their shifting bones and restless spirits. For Noah Hart, it was just another reminder that he was a very long way from the quiet suburbs of Earth, where the streetlights hummed with electricity, not ancient magic. Noah adjusted the strap of his canvas satchel, shifting the weight of the harvested star root. He was a man of average height, perhaps a little on the lean side, with hair the color of dried wheat, and eyes that permanently held the crinkles of a man trying to find humor in a situation that was objectively terrifying. He was a gardener here, a glorified weeder of the Moonfang Keep's medicinal plots. He looked up at the fortress that dominated the landscape. Moonfang Keep was a geological impossibility, a massive spire of black jagged rock that pierced the clouds, reinforced with timber from trees that had stood for 1,000 years, and draped in tapestries of cured leather. But what made it truly alien were the veins of glowing crystal moonstone that ran through the masonry like a nervous system. The keep breathed. Noah swore he could hear it inhaling the cold night air. "Come on, sweetheart," Noah murmured, looking down at the small bundle wrapped in a knitted yellow scarf that stood in stark contrast to the gothic severity of their surroundings. Mia, his daughter, looked up. She was 6 years old, missing a front tooth, and currently looking as miserable as a wet cat. Her nose was red and her cheeks were flushed, not with the mystical energy of the planet, but with a very standard, very earthly flu. "I do not want to walk, Daddy," Mia croaked, her voice thick. "My legs are jelly." "Jelly legs are a serious condition," Noah said solemnly, crouching down. "Fatal to walking, but excellent for piggyback rides. Hop on." Mia climbed onto his back, her small arms wrapping around his neck. She smelled of Vicks Vapo Rub, a distinct scent Noah had hoarded from their dwindling earth supplies, and faint milk. As he straightened up, groaning theatrically for her amusement, he felt the gazes of the guards at the keep's lower gate. 2 Lupin warriors stood there. They were 7 feet tall, their armor a mix of plate metal and dire beast fur. Their helmets were off, revealing faces that were undeniably human in structure but predatory in essence. Yellow eyes with slit pupils, elongated canines that rested over their lower lips, and ears that pointed sharply upward, twitching at the sound of Noah's boots on the cobblestones. "Halt!" one of the guards rumbled. His voice sounded like gravel grinding together. "State business, human." Noah shifted Mia's weight. "Noah Hart, assistant herbalist. And this is Mia. We are here to see Dr. Heirs in the lower ward. She has a fever." The guard sniffed the air. The Lupin did not trust ID cards. They trusted their noses. He inhaled Noah's scent, dirt sweat anxiety, and then Mia's sickness. "The human young is weak," the guard sneered, though there was no real malice in it, just a statement of biological fact. "Go. Keep to the stone path. The Emperor is in the upper nursery. The mood is foul." "Foul mood. Got it. We will be invisible," Noah promised. He hurried through the gates, the massive iron doors closing behind him, with a thud that vibrated in his chest. He kept his head down. That was the rule of survival here. 2 years ago, he had lost Emily to this planet. She had been the brave one, the doctor who believed in bridging the gap between species. Noah was just the guy who knew how to grow tomatoes, and now how to cultivate glowing moss without burning his fingers. He had promised himself he would keep Mia safe, which meant staying out of the way of the wolves. However, fate, or perhaps the moons, had a very different schedule for the evening. High above the servant quarters and the gardens in the nursery of the moons, the air was thick with the smell of ozone and distressed pheromones. The room was vast, carved directly into the living rock of the mountain. The ceiling was a dome of glass, exposing the room to the full, unblinking stare of the three moons. Under normal circumstances, this was a place of quiet sanctity. Tonight, it sounded like a war zone. No, no, no. The shriek tore through the air, vibrating against the crystal veins in the walls. Dr. Seren, a young female Lupin, with sleek, silver-tipped charcoal fur along her hairline, and forearms stood by the crib, her ears flattened against her skull. She held a silver spoon, filled with a viscous, shimmering liquid. "Prince Rowan, please," Seren pleaded, her voice tight with exhaustion. "It is for the fire in your blood. You must swallow." The toddler in the crib, a boy of 3 years, did not look like a child. His eyes were glowing a brilliant, terrifying gold. His skin was hot enough to radiate heat waves, and his small fingernails had lengthened into sharp, dark claws. He hissed a sound that no 3-year-old human could make, and swiped at the spoon. Clang. The spoon flew across the room, splattering the expensive medicine, a mixture of liquefied silver and crushed moonfern across the stone floor. "Out, get out!" the other twin, Princess Kaya, screamed from the adjacent crib. She was in the same state, her small body arching in agony, the moon fever taking hold of her senses. Standing in the shadows of the room was a figure that made the very air seem heavier. Aldrich, the Wolf Emperor. He was a giant even among his own kind, with broad shoulders that carried the weight of a dying empire, and a face scarred by battles both political and physical. His hair was a mane of white and black falling over eyes that were usually cold and calculating. Now, those eyes were wide with a helpless terror that no blade could inspire. "Seren," Aldrich growled, a low rumble in his chest. "Do something. They are burning." "I am trying, my emperor," Seren said, dropping to her knees to retrieve the spoon. Her hands were shaking. She was one of the best healers in the keep, trained in the ancient ways of singing the blood, calm and binding wounds with spirit thread. But moon fever was different. It was the curse of the royal bloodline. It pulled the soul toward the feral wolf spirit before the child's mind was strong enough to control it. If the fever did not break, they would be lost to the beast forever, becoming mindless wraiths in the forest. The only cure was the silver medicine. It acted as an anchor, a heavy cold weight to ground their spirits. But it tasted like liquid metal and ash. "They reject the silver," Seren said, despair creeping into her voice. "Their instincts are fighting it. They smell the metal and they think it is a shackle. I have tried sweetening it with honey sap. I have tried chanting the lullaby of the first pack. Nothing works." Aldrich stepped forward, his massive hand hovering over Kaya's crib. He wanted to touch her to soothe her, but he knew his own energy was too potent, too volatile. He was an alpha. His presence demanded submission, and that pressure would only crush their fragile states. "If they do not drink by the time the red moon reaches its zenith," Aldrich said, his voice cracking, "the fever will take them." Kaya let out a sob that turned into a growl. She was 3 years old, and she was fighting a war inside her own veins. Down in the lower medical ward, the atmosphere was less apocalyptic, but equally miserable. The waiting room was a drafty corridor, lined with stone benches. It smelled of antiseptic herbs and damp fur. Noah sat on one of the benches, Mia perched on his lap. The local doctor, a gruff elderly Lupin, named Heirs, had given them a small vial of herbal syrup for Mia's flu, and told them to wait while he mixed a poultice for her chest. "It tastes like old socks," Mia complained, eyeing the wooden cup Noah was holding. "How do you know what old socks taste like?" Noah asked, raising an eyebrow. "Have you been snacking on the laundry again?" Mia giggled weakly, then coughed. "No, but it smells like socks." "Listen, Peanut," Noah whispered, checking the corridor. It was empty, save for the flickering torches. "You drink this and the headache goes away. Then we go home, I make hot cocoa with the last of the chocolate powder, and we read the book about the caterpillar who ate too much." "I cannot," Mia whined, turning her face away. "My throat hurts," Noah sighed. He looked at the cup. It was muddy brown, and did smell faintly of wet wool. He could not force her. Emily had always said that medicine given with force was poison to the spirit. Emily had been the genius at this. Noah was just the guy improvising. He looked at his daughter, small and pale against the harsh stone of the castle. He needed her to be okay. He needed her to smile, because when she didn't smile, the silence of the planet felt too loud. "Okay," Noah said, setting the cup down on the bench. "I guess the medicine is gone." "Oh well," Mia blinked, looking back. "Gone." Noah held up his hands, showing his empty palms. "Yup, disappeared." He suddenly brought his hands up to his face, covering his eyes. "Where is Daddy?" Noah asked, his voice exaggeratedly confused. "He was just here. Did he go to the moon? Is he in the garden?" Mia watched him, her tired eyes crinkling at the corners. "Peekaboo!" Noah cried, snapping his hands away and making a goofy, wide-eyed face. Mia let out a short, raspy laugh. "Do it again," she whispered. Noah covered his face again. "Where is he? Is he hiding in a soup pot? Is he behind the curtain?" "No," Mia giggled. "Peekaboo." Noah revealed his face again, this time crossing his eyes. Mia laughed harder this time, her shoulders shaking. While she was laughing, her mouth open, Noah swiftly grabbed the cup and brought it to her lips. "Quick sip for the magic trick," he said. Mia, distracted by the game, swallowed the syrup before she could register the taste. She made a face a second later, but it was too late. The medicine was down. "You tricked me," she accused, but she was smiling. "I have no idea what you are talking about," Noah said, wiping a drop of syrup from her chin. "I am just a magician." He did not notice the figure standing on the other side of the thick glass pane that separated the public waiting area from the sterile corridor leading to the royal nursery. Princess Kaya had managed to crawl out of her crib. Her little body was burning, her vision swimming in red and gold. She had been trying to find a dark corner to curl up in to escape the burning light of the room and the bitter smell of the silver. She had reached the glass partition. It was cool against her feverish forehead. Through the glass, she saw the human male. He was small, lacking the aura of power that her father radiated. He had no claws, but he was doing something strange. He covered his face. He vanished. Kaya stopped growling. Her breath hitched. For a moment, the overwhelming instinct to fight, to tear, to run was paused by sheer curiosity. Then the human moved his hands. He reappeared. He was smiling. The small human female laughed. Kaya blinked. Her tail, which had been stiff with aggression, lowered slightly. The pain in her blood was still there, but the rhythm of the game hide, reveal was a pattern. It was predictable. In the chaos of the moon fever, where reality was melting, the pattern was an anchor. Behind her, Seren had stopped mixing the next batch of useless herbs. She had noticed the silence. The screaming had stopped. Seren turned slowly. She saw Kaya pressed against the glass, her golden eyes wide, fixated on the hallway. Seren moved silently to the window and looked out. She saw Noah Hart, the gardener. She saw him covering his face with his hands. She saw him reveal his face. "Peekaboo!" Noah's muffled voice came through the glass. Seren watched as Kaya, the feral princess, who had just bitten a nurse's hand, slowly lifted her own trembling clawed paws. She covered her eyes. She waited. Then she pulled them away. It was a clumsy imitation, but for the first time in 48 hours, the child was not screaming. "What is that?" The voice boomed behind Seren, making her jump. The Wolf Emperor had come to see what had silenced his daughter. Aldrich towered over Seren, peering through the glass. He saw the human father and the human child. He saw the game. He saw the sip of medicine. He saw the laughter. "It is a ritual," Seren whispered, her mind racing to categorize the behavior. "A human binding spell. He banishes his presence, then restores it. It seems to reset the child's focus." Aldrich watched Noah with an intensity that could melt steel. He saw the love in the human's eyes, the gentle deception, the safety he created in a cold, stone corridor. He looked down at Kaya, who was pressing her face to the glass, mesmerized. "Bring him," Aldrich commanded. "My emperor?" Seren asked, startled. "Bring the human." Aldrich turned his cape swirling. "Bring him to the nursery, now." Noah was just putting the scarf back on Mia when the door to the waiting area burst open. He expected Dr. Heirs. Instead, 2 royal guards marched in, followed by a pale-looking servant. "Noah Hart," the servant squeaked. Noah stood up instinctively, putting himself between the guards and Mia. "Yes, did I park my cart in the wrong spot because the sign was very faded, and the Emperor demands your presence," the guard boomed. Noah blinked. "Who?" "The Emperor. Inside. Now." "I have my daughter. She is sick." Noah stammered, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "She comes too," the guard said. "Move." It was not a request. Noah scooped up Mia, who was now wide awake, and staring at the big wolves with awe rather than fear. He followed the guards, his mind racing. What had he done? Had he harvested a sacred plant? Had Mia touched something forbidden? They led him past the general ward through a set of heavy double doors that required 2 guards to push open and into the inner sanctum. The nursery of the moons was overwhelming. The air was hot and smelled of ozone. The light was too bright. And there, standing in the center of the room, like a dark god, was the Wolf Emperor. Noah swallowed hard. He felt very small. "Your Majesty," Noah managed to squeak. He tried to bow, but with Mia in his arms it looked more like a clumsy squat. Aldrich did not speak. He pointed a clawed finger at the cribs. Noah looked. He saw the 2 toddlers. They looked horrifyingly sick. Their skin was flushed a deep, unnatural violet, and their eyes were glowing like dying stars. They were growling low in their throats. "They are dying," Aldrich said. The raw pain in his voice shocked Noah. It stripped away the Emperor and left only a terrified father. "They refuse the silver. The fever consumes them." Noah looked at Seren, who was holding a silver bowl, as if it were a weapon she did not know how to use. "We saw you," Seren said, her voice clinical but urgent. "In the hall. You performed a gesture, a disappearing act. The princess responded to it." Noah stared at her. "You mean peekaboo?" "Peekaboo," Aldrich repeated the word, carefully testing the weight of it. "Is this a human healing incantation?" Noah shifted Mia, who was burying her face in his neck. "No, not exactly. It is a game. For babies. It helps them understand object permanence. You know that things go away, but they come back. It makes them feel safe." "Safe," Aldrich murmured. He looked at his children. They do not feel safe. They feel the call of the wild void. They need an anchor. He turned his burning gaze on Noah. "Do it." "Excuse me," Noah asked. "Do the peekaboo," Aldrich commanded. "Make them drink." The room went silent. The guards, the nurses, the Emperor. Everyone was looking at Noah. He was a gardener. He knew soil pH levels and pruning schedules. He did not know how to perform for royalty, let alone feral werewolf royalty. "I do not know if it will work," Noah stammered. "They are intense." Rowan, the boy twin, let out a shriek that rattled Noah's teeth. He stood up in his crib claws, digging into the wood, snarling at Noah. "Everyone back," Noah said, his voice trembling, but finding a sudden thread of authority. "You are scaring them. You are all too big. You smell like fear." Aldrich's eyes narrowed, but he took a step back. He waved a hand and the guards retreated to the walls. Seren stepped back into the shadows. Noah walked toward the cribs. His legs felt like lead. He sat down on the cold stone floor, placing himself at eye level with the bars of the crib. He set Mia down next to him. "Daddy, are they wolf puppies?" Mia whispered loud enough for the whole room to hear. "Shh," Noah said. "They are just sick kids, Peanut, like you." He looked at Rowan. The boy was panting saliva, dripping from his chin. He looked ready to kill. Noah took a deep breath. He picked up the silver spoon Seren had left on the low table. He dipped it into the bowl of medicine. "Hey there, tough guy," Noah said softly. Rowan hissed. Noah dropped the spoon back into the bowl with a clatter. He raised his hands and covered his face. "Where did Noah go?" he asked the empty air. The growling stopped. The sudden disappearance of the perceived threat confused the cub. Noah waited. 1 second. 2 seconds. The tension in the room was suffocating. "Peekaboo!" Noah opened his hands. He smiled. Not a baring of teeth, but a soft, crinkling smile. Rowan blinked. The gold in his eyes dimmed for a fraction of a second. "Where is he?" Noah covered his face again. Kaya, in the next crib, pulled herself up. She was watching intently. "Peekaboo!" This time, Noah grabbed the spoon with lightning speed as he revealed his face. He held it up not as a weapon, but as part of the reveal. Rowan watched the spoon. He did not recoil. "One more time," Noah whispered. He covered his face with one hand, holding the spoon with the other near his mouth. "Where did the spoon go? Where did Noah go?" He popped his hand away. "Peekaboo." He moved the spoon gently toward Rowan's lips. The boy was disoriented by the rhythm of the game, his predatory instincts short-circuited by the playful repetition. He opened his mouth not to bite, but in surprise. Noah slipped the medicine in. Rowan swallowed. A collective gasp went through the room. The boy made a face, sticking his tongue out at the bitter taste, but he did not spit it out. The liquid silver went down. Almost instantly, the violent heat radiating from his skin seemed to dampen. His shoulders slumped. "Me too," Mia chirped from beside Noah. "Do me," Noah chuckled, the adrenaline making him lightheaded. He turned to Kaya. She was waiting. She actually had her little hands hovering near her face. Noah dipped the spoon again. He played the game. He covered his eyes. He revealed them. He fed the princess of the Wolf Empire as if she were a toddler in a high chair in Ohio. Drop by drop, spoon by spoon, the twins drank. The manic energy in the room began to dissipate, replaced by the heavy, rhythmic breathing of sleep. Within 20 minutes, both twins were curled up under their furs. The glow in their eyes had faded to a soft, sleepy amber. Their claws had retracted into pudgy fingers. Noah sat back on his heels, wiping sweat from his forehead. He felt drained. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay." He looked up to find Aldrich standing directly over him. The Emperor was not looking at his children. He was looking at Noah. The expression on his face was unreadable, a mix of awe, confusion, and a terrifying amount of focus. "You possess a magic we do not know," Aldrich said quietly. "It is not magic," Noah said, standing up and picking up a sleeping Mia, who had dozed off against his leg. "It is just distraction. They are kids, Your Majesty. They just needed to forget they were scared for a second." Seren stepped forward. She looked at the empty medicine bowl, then at Noah. "I have studied the healing arts for 50 years. I have never seen a fever break so fast." "Well," Noah shifted Mia to his other shoulder. "I am glad I could help. If you do not mind, I really need to get Mia home. She has the flu and—" "No," Aldrich said. The word was heavy. It landed like a stone door slamming shut. Noah froze. "No." "The red moon is not yet past," Aldrich said. He stepped closer, his shadow engulfing Noah. "The fever will return when the moons align tomorrow night, and the night after that." "I can leave the instructions," Noah offered weakly. "Cover face. Open face. Say the word." "It is not the motion," Aldrich said, his golden eyes piercing Noah's soul. "It is the spirit. They trust you. They drank for you." Aldrich turned to the guards at the door. "Prepare the guest tower in the east wing. The human stays." "Wait," Noah panicked. "I cannot stay here. I have a job, I have a house, my plants." "Your plants will be tended to," Aldrich said. "Your house is now here. The Emperor leaned down, his face inches from Noah's. "My children are dying, Noah Hart. You are the only thing that works. You will stay. You will play your game. And you will not leave until the moons change." It was a request phrased as an absolute command. There was no room for negotiation in the set of Aldrich's jaw. Noah looked at Seren for help, but she only lowered her eyes, acknowledging the Emperor's will. He looked at the sleeping twins, then at the sleeping daughter in his arms. He was trapped in the heart of the Wolf Empire, armed only with a spoon and a game of peekaboo. "Okay," Noah whispered, defeated. "But I need soft pillows. And more chocolate powder for Mia." Aldrich straightened up, the terrifying intensity softening just a fraction. "You shall have mountains of chocolate," the Wolf Emperor declared solemnly. Noah watched the guards open the inner doors, revealing the dark, winding corridors of the keep that led deeper into the mountain. He took a breath that smelled of ancient stone and wolf. "Well, Mia," Noah whispered to his sleeping daughter as he stepped forward into his new life, "I guess we are moving up in the world." The heavy doors groaned shut behind them, sealing Noah Hart inside the Moonfang Keep. The guest tower in the east wing of Moonfang Keep was, by all architectural standards, a masterpiece of defensive engineering and lupine aesthetics. To Noah Hart, it looked like Dracula had hired a decorator who specialized in intimidating varying shades of gray. The walls were curved obsidian, cold to the touch and slick with the ambient moisture of the mountain. The furniture was carved from massive dark timber that looked heavy enough to crush a human foot. There were tapestries depicting what Noah assumed were heroic battles, though to his untrained eye, they mostly looked like large wolves eating slightly smaller things. "Look, Daddy, I can see the whole world." Mia was pressed against the narrow arched window, her breath fogging up the glass. She was bouncing on her toes, the flu symptoms from the previous day having vanished with the resilience only a 6-year-old possesses. Noah dropped his duffel bag onto a bed covered in enough animal furs to cloak a small village. He walked over to the window. The view was indeed spectacular. From this height, the medicinal gardens looked like a patchwork quilt of glowing purples and greens. Beyond that, the Whisperwood stretched out like an ocean of dark ink, illuminated by the 3 moons, one full 2 crescents, hanging heavy in the sky. "It is high up, Peanut," Noah said instinctively, gripping the back of her pajamas. "Do not lean too hard on the glass. I do not know if wolf glass is safety rated." "It is magic glass," Mia stated confidently. "The nice lady with the silver ears said so." "Dr. Seren," Noah corrected automatically. "And let us hope magic covers structural integrity." He looked around the room. It was grand, yes, but it felt alien. He was a gardener. He belonged in the dirt, wearing soil-stained trousers, not in a high tower, surrounded by apex predators who could smell his anxiety. The imposter syndrome was not just a voice in his head. It was a screaming chorus. Why was he here? Because he played a game. It felt flimsy. It felt like a mistake that was going to collapse the moment the novelty wore off. A heavy knock on the wooden door made him jump. "Enter," Noah squeaked, then cleared his throat and tried for a lower register. "Come in." The door creaked open. A servant Lupin, a young male with sandy fur on his cheeks, shuffled in. He was carrying a massive crate that looked heavy enough to break his back, yet he held it with ease. "Compliments of the Emperor," the servant grunted, setting the crate down with a thud that shook the floorboards. Noah approached it warily. He pried off the lid. Inside, packed in straw, were 6 large tin canisters. Noah lifted one out and read the label. Premium hot chocolate mix. Imported from Earth Sector 4. "He was serious," Noah whispered, staring at the canister. A mountain of chocolate. "Is there anything else, Master Playkeeper?" the servant asked. Just Noah, please. Just Noah," he said. "And thank you. This is perfect." As the servant left, Noah looked at Mia. She was already climbing onto the bed, burying herself in the furs, until only her eyes were visible. "This is our castle now," she declared. "It is just a room, Mia," Noah said, though he popped the lid off the cocoa tin and took a deep smell of the artificial sugar and cocoa dust. It smelled like home. It smelled like normal. "Just a room where we have a very strange job to do." The routine established itself over the next 7 days, with a jarring mix of high-stakes tension and domestic absurdity. Every evening as the first moon crested the jagged peaks of the mountains, Noah would walk the long, torchlit corridor to the nursery of the moons. The guards would nod to him, a stiff, confused gesture that was half salute, half shrug. He was the human who makes the princes drink. It was a title that earned him a bizarre celebrity status within the keep. The ritual was always the same. Dr. Seren would be waiting. She was always impeccable, her white robes stiff with starch, her silver-tipped fur brushed to a shine. She treated the preparation of the medicine like a holy sacrament. She measured the liquid silver. She crushed the moon ferns. She chanted low, rhythmic verses that made the air hum. And then Noah would sit on the floor and cover his face. Where is Noah? Rowan and Kaya, the terrifyingly powerful offspring of the Wolf Emperor, would stop their low-level growling. They would watch him with golden eyes that held the weight of centuries. Peekaboo. They would drink. It worked. That was the undeniable fact. The fever did not vanish, but it was kept at bay. The twins were sleeping. They were eating solids. They had stopped trying to bite the bars of their cribs. But by the 4th night, Noah realized it was not enough. He was sitting on the floor, waiting for Kaya to finish swallowing her dose. He looked around the nursery. It was a magnificent room, but it was cold. The stone walls were bare except for protective runes painted in blood-red pigment. The cribs were carved from ironwood, beautiful but hard. The only sound was the distant wind howling through the stone vents. It felt like a crypt, not a nursery. "It is too quiet in here," Noah said, breaking the silence. Seren looked up from her chart. "Quiet is necessary for the stabilization of the aura." "It is depressing," Noah countered. "Look at them. They are tense even when they sleep. This place, it feels like a waiting room for a funeral." Seren's ears flattened. "This is the chamber of the first howl. It is sacred." "It is a bedroom for toddlers," Noah said, standing up and brushing dust off his knees. "They need softness. They need warmth that does not come from a fire pit 10 feet away." "The princes must be raised in strength," Seren argued, her voice rising. "Softness breeds weakness. The Wolf Emperor would not permit." "The Wolf Emperor wants them to survive," Noah interrupted. He surprised himself with his own boldness. Maybe it was the chocolate, or maybe it was the way Rowan was gripping the edge of his blanket with white-knuckled fear. "I am the keeper of play, right? That is the title you guys gave me. Well, play requires an environment." The next morning, Noah began his assault on the nursery's aesthetic. He brought in blankets from the human quarters, quilts stitched with yellow and blue threads, smelling of lavender detergent, rather than musk and cured leather. He replaced the heavy iron rattles with soft stuffed animals he found in the market, a lopsided bear, and a fabric rabbit. Seren watched him like a hawk, watching a mouse rearrange its nest. "That is a fire hazard," she pointed out, as Noah draped a soft cotton sheet over the side of the crib to block a draft. "It is flame retardant," Noah lied. "And look," he pointed to Kaya. The girl had grabbed the corner of the yellow quilt. She rubbed the soft fabric against her cheek. For the first time, her claws retracted fully. She let out a small, soft sigh and closed her eyes. "She likes the texture," Noah whispered. "It grounds her. The fur and leather is too much sensory input. It smells like an animal. It triggers their instincts. This smells like nothing. It lets them just be kids." Seren walked over. She reached out and touched the quilt. Her hand, strong and capable of snapping bone, brushed the cotton with surprising delicacy. "It is flimsy," she muttered. But she did not tear it away. Later that afternoon, Noah brought in a small music box he had found in his luggage, a wind-up toy that played a tinny, slightly out-of-tune version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. When he wound it up, the sound cut through the heavy, sacred silence of the room. Rowan sat up, his head tilted to the side, mimicking a puppy hearing a new sound. He did not growl. He listened. "It interferes with the resonance of the protection runes," Seren complained, though she was writing furiously in her notebook. "It has a rhythm," Noah said. "Like a heartbeat. Listen." From the shadows near the door, a massive figure shifted. Aldrich had been standing there for 20 minutes, silent as a statue. Noah knew he was there. The hair on the back of his neck always stood up when the Emperor was near, but he pretended not to notice. Aldrich stepped into the light. He looked at the yellow quilts. He looked at the stuffed bear. He listened to the tinny music. "My father was raised on a bed of granite to harden his bones," Aldrich rumbled. Noah froze his hand on the music box. "Your Majesty, I can remove them if—" "He grew up to be a tyrant who bit the throat out of his own brother," Aldrich finished. He walked over to Rowan's crib. The Emperor reached down, his massive clawed hand hovering over the child. Rowan reached up and grabbed his father's finger. Usually, this interaction made Rowan cry. Today, surrounded by the soft quilt and the silly music, the boy just held on. "Keep the blankets," Aldrich commanded. He turned and walked out, his cape swirling behind him. Noah let out a breath he had been holding for 10 minutes. He looked at Seren. "See," Noah said, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. "Softness is strategic." Seren looked at him. For a fleeting second, the corner of her mouth twitched upward. "You are infuriatingly lucky, human." Despite the small victories, the nights were the hardest for Noah. Once the twins were asleep, and Seren had dismissed him, he would return to the tower. Mia would be asleep, sprawled out like a starfish in the middle of the bed. Noah would sit by the window, drinking lukewarm water, and let the doubt eat at him. He was a fraud. He knew it. Emily would have known exactly what to do. Emily would have analyzed the chemical composition of the silver medicine and improved it. Emily would have learned the Lupin language in a week. Emily would have commanded respect because she was brilliant and brave. Noah was just a guy playing hide-and-seek. He was a court jester in a kingdom of warriors. "You are thinking too loud, Daddy," Noah turned. Mia was awake, rubbing her eyes. "Sorry, Peanut," Noah said. "Go back to sleep." "Tell me a story," she demanded, patting the empty space beside her. Noah sighed and climbed onto the bed. "Which one?" the space turtle. "No. Tell me about Mommy and the wolves." Noah stiffened. He rarely told these stories. They hurt too much. But looking at the moonlit forest, it felt unavoidable. "Okay," Noah whispered. "Once upon a time, Mommy came to this planet. She was a great healer. She wore a white coat and she was not afraid of anything. Not even the biggest, scariest wolves." "Like Mr. Aldrich?" Mia asked. "Yes, like Mr. Aldrich," Noah said. "Mommy believed that even wolves get sick and even wolves need kindness. She used to say that a wolf is just a patient with more teeth." "And she gave them medicine." "Yes. She was very strict about it." Noah smiled sadly at the memory. "Mommy did not play games when it came to health. She would look them in the eye and say, 'Drink this,' or 'I will be very cross.' And they listened. Because they respected her." Mia was quiet for a moment, tracing the pattern on the fur blanket. "I like your way better," she said softly. Noah blinked. "What?" "Mommy was smart," Mia said, yawning. "But her medicine tasted bad. You make it fun. If I was a wolf, I would want the peekaboo, not the strict lady." The words were innocent, but they pierced Noah's chest like a needle. Not the strict lady. "Mommy did what she had to do to save people," Noah defended weakly. "I know," Mia murmured, her eyes closing. "But you saved them too, Daddy. You just make them laugh while you do it." She drifted off to sleep, leaving Noah staring at the ceiling. A tear tracked hot and slow down his temple. He had spent 2 years trying to be the father Emily would have wanted him to be: responsible, serious, protective. But maybe Mia was right. Maybe the keep didn't need another Emily. It had plenty of serious, grim healers. Maybe it needed a Noah. The relationship between Noah and the Emperor was complicated. Aldrich was terrifying. That was the baseline. He was 7 feet of muscle and ancient magic. But Noah began to notice the cracks in the armor. Aldrich started showing up at the nursery earlier. He would stand in the corner pretending to read reports on a scroll, but his eyes were always on the twins. And on Noah. One afternoon, Noah was engaged in a particularly high-stakes game of Got Your Nose with Kaya. "Oh no!" Noah gasped, holding his thumb between his fingers. "I have the princess's nose. How will she smell the flowers? How will she sneeze?" Kaya shrieked with laughter, batting at his hand. "Give back, give back!" Noah popped his thumb back. "There it is, good as new." He looked up and saw Aldrich standing just inside the doorway. The scroll in his hand was upside down. The Emperor was staring at Noah's hand, a look of profound confusion and recognition on his face. "Got your nose," Aldrich murmured. Noah stood up, dusting off his pants. "Just a game, Your Majesty. Teaches body awareness." Aldrich walked forward. He looked at Noah, then at Kaya, who was touching her own nose to make sure it was still there. "I have seen this," Aldrich said. His voice was distant, echoing from a memory deep in the past. "Not the disappearing face. The nose theft. I have seen it done. It is a common human game," Noah said. "Most parents do it." "No," Aldrich shook his head. "I saw her do it. Years ago. To a village child in the Outer Rim." He stopped abruptly. His jaw tightened. The vulnerability vanished, replaced by the mask of the Emperor. "Who?" Noah asked, his heart skipping a beat. "It does not matter." Aldrich turned away sharply. "You have talent with them, human. Continue." He strode out of the room, but the air behind him felt charged with unsaid words. Noah frowned. He knew Emily had been here. He knew she had treated patients. But the way Aldrich had spoken, it sounded personal. It sounded like a memory kept in a locked box. The chemistry with Dr. Seren was different. It was born of trench warfare. They were the only 2 people in the keep who were awake at 3 a.m. fighting a mystical fever with spoons and silver. One night, the air was particularly heavy. The twins were restless, whimpering in their sleep. Noah and Seren sat on the floor between the cribs, exhausted. Noah's hair was a bird's nest. Seren's pristine robes were rumpled, and she had a smudge of soot on her white nose. Noah was eating a protein bar he had found in his pocket. It tasted like cardboard and chocolate chips. "You realize," Noah said, chewing loudly, "that we are basically glorified bartenders. We mix the drink, we keep the customers from fighting, and we stay up until dawn." Seren looked at him sideways. Her golden eyes were tired. "Bartenders, those who serve intoxicants." "Yeah, except our customers are toddlers and the drink is liquid metal." Seren let out a short, sharp huff of air through her nose. It was almost a laugh. "The silver is not an intoxicant," she corrected automatically, but the bite was gone from her voice. "It is a stabilizing agent." "It smells like wet pennies," Noah said. "Honestly, if you tried to feed that to me, I would spit it in your face too. Probably aim for the eyes." Seren stared at him for a second. Then a strange sound bubbled up from her throat. A chuckle. Then a full laugh. It was a rusty sound like a gate opening that hadn't been used in years. "You would not succeed," Seren said, a small smile playing on her lips. "I have excellent reflexes." "I don't know." Noah grinned, tired and delirious. "I have a pretty mean spit take. I was 3rd runner-up in the Great Ohio Watermelon Seed Spitting Contest of 2018. "I do not know what half of those words mean," Seren admitted, shaking her head. She looked at Noah, really looked at him. "You are strange, Noah Hart. You have no magic. You have no claws. You fear the wind, yet you stay." "I cannot leave," Noah shrugged. "Aldrich made that pretty clear." "No," Seren said softly. "You could have run. Humans run. It is what you do. But you stay in the room when the fever spikes. You hold the hand of the monster." She reached out and adjusted the blanket on Kaya, her hand brushing against Noah's arm. A spark of static electricity jumped between them. Noah pulled back, slightly surprised. Seren did not. She held his gaze. "Perhaps," Seren whispered, "the keep has been lacking in strangeness." For a moment, in the dim light of the moons, the barrier between species, the doctor and the gardener, the wolf and the human, felt very thin. Noah felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the heater. Then Rowan rolled over and farted loudly in his sleep. The moment shattered. Noah snorted. Seren rolled her eyes, but the smile remained. The peace, however, was a lie. The planet was preparing to breathe. It happened on a Tuesday night. Noah was in the nursery, humming along to the music box. Seren was measuring the dose. Suddenly, the air pressure in the room dropped so fast Noah's ears popped. The torches on the walls flared green, then turned a violent, bloody red. Outside, the wind didn't just howl. It screamed. A sound like 1,000 sirens wailing in unison. "Moonstorm!" Seren shouted, dropping the silver vial. "It is early, it is 2 cycles early." The window above them rattled, as if a giant fist had punched it. The light pouring in changed from silver to a thick, viscous crimson, and the twins woke up. This was not the fussing of sick children. This was an explosion. Rowan and Kaya sat up in unison, their backs arched, their jaws unhinged, opening wider than humanly possible. The sound that came out of them was a dual-tone harmonic shriek that shattered the glass of the medicine cabinet. "Shield them!" Seren yelled, throwing her hands up. A barrier of shimmering blue light erupted around the cribs, but the red light of the storm was eating through it like acid. "What is happening?" Noah yelled over the noise covering his ears. "The red moons have aligned with the darker currents," Seren screamed. "The atmosphere is saturated with feral energy. It is calling their souls out." Noah looked at the cribs. The twins were changing. Fur was erupting rapidly along their spines. Their faces were elongating, the bones cracking and reshaping with sickening crunches. But it wasn't a smooth transformation. It was jagged wrong. They were stuck halfway, monstrous hybrids of child and beast, thrashing in agony. "The medicine!" Noah lunged for the fallen vial. "It will not work!" Seren cried, her magic shield buckling. "The storm is too strong. They cannot hear us." Noah looked at the chaos. He looked at the monsters in the cribs. They were not his sweet Kaya and grumpy Rowan. They were beasts. Fear, cold and primal, gripped Noah's gut. Run, his brain screamed. Get Mia and run. But then he saw Kaya's eyes. Amidst the glowing red sclera, there was a tiny dot of terrified human brown. She was in there. She was drowning in the wolf. Noah grabbed the side of the crib. The wood was hot enough to blister his palms. "Hey!" Noah shouted. "Hey, look at me!" The creature, that was Kaya, snapped at him, her teeth inches from his nose. "No." Noah didn't pull back. He slammed his hand against the bars. "We are playing. We are playing right now." He dropped to the floor. He covered his face with his burnt hands. "Where is Noah?" he screamed into his palms. The storm roared. The keep shook. Noah squeezed his eyes shut. He focused on the image of the children. Not monsters. Kids. Just kids. "Peekaboo." He threw his hands open. For a second, nothing happened. Then Noah saw it. Floating around the cribs were sparks. Not fire, but shapes. Ghostly, translucent wolves made of starlight were circling the twins. They were snapping at the children, trying to drag something out of them. But when Noah shouted peekaboo, the light from his own face, just a normal human face, seemed to push the ghost wolves back. He wasn't imagining it. Every time he engaged the twins, the feral spirits recoiled. "Seren!" Noah yelled. "Do you see that?" Seren was struggling to hold the shield, sweat pouring down her face. She looked where Noah pointed. Her eyes widened. "Spirit wraiths," she gasped. "They are feeding on the transition. Noah, do not stop your connection. It acts as a barrier." Noah didn't ask questions. He played. He played like his life depended on it. He played Got Your Nose. He played patty cake with the air. He sang The Wheels on the Bus at the top of his lungs, while the room turned into a red hellscape. The wheels on the bus go round and round, snap, hiss. The ghost wolves circled, lunging, but Noah's voice was a physical wall. He was the anchor. He was the human reality that refused to let the twins dissolve into the magic. For 3 hours the storm raged. Noah's throat was bleeding. His hands were shaking. But he didn't stop. Finally, the red light began to fade. The screaming wind died down to a whimper. The twins collapsed. They didn't transform back to human fully. They were still covered in patches of fur, their ears pointed, but they were breathing. The ghost wolves faded into the stone. Noah slumped against the crib, gasping for air. The door burst open. Aldrich stood there, flanked by guards. He was drenched in rain, his armor scorched. He had been fighting the storm outside to protect the keep. He looked at the wreckage of the nursery. He looked at Seren, collapsed in the corner. He looked at Noah, who was curled in a fetal position, muttering, "The wipers on the bus go swish, swish, swish." Aldrich walked to the cribs. He checked the twins. They were alive. He turned to Seren. "Report." Seren dragged herself up. The silver failed. The magic failed. The human, he fought the wraiths. With a song about a mechanical transport vehicle. Aldrich turned his gaze to Noah. There was no anger in his eyes now, only a terrifying realization. "The wraiths came," Aldrich asked softly. "Yes," Seren whispered. "They tried to take the souls." "Then the silver is no longer enough," Aldrich said. His voice was final. "The fever has evolved. If the wraiths are here, the next red moon will kill them. Or worse, it will leave their bodies empty." Noah pulled himself up to a sitting position. "So we need stronger silver." "No," Aldrich said. "We need the source." The Emperor walked to the window, looking out at the retreating storm. Deep in the Whisperwood there is a place called the Moonwell. It is the original spring of Lumeris. The water there can speak to the wolf and the man within the blood. It can bind them together so they do not tear each other apart. "Great," Noah croaked. "Send a squad. Get a bucket of water." "It is not that simple," Aldrich turned. "The Moonwell is sentient. It hides from Lupin. It sees us as predators. It has not revealed itself to a wolf emperor in 1,000 years. He paused, his eyes landing heavily on Noah. "But it revealed itself once, 2 years ago, to a human." Noah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. "Emily?" "Yes," Aldrich said. "She found it. She wrote of it in her journals, which I kept. She said the well responds to purity of intent. It responds to those who do not seek power, but connection. It responds to joy." Aldrich walked over to Noah. He extended a hand. It was a gesture of equality that made the guards in the hallway gasp. "The well will not open for me," Aldrich said. "I am too full of war. But you who fight monsters with a nursery rhyme, it might open for you." "You want me to go into the woods?" Noah asked, looking at the dark forest. "The woods full of things that want to eat me." "I will send Seren with you to protect you," Aldrich said. "But you must be the one to ask the water." "And Mia?" Noah asked immediately. "Mia stays here," Aldrich said. "The woods are too dangerous for a child. She will be under my personal protection. I swear on my blood, Noah Hart. No harm will come to her. I will guard her as I guard my own twins." Noah looked at Seren. She gave him a grim nod. "We have to do this." He looked at the twins sleeping fitfully, patches of fur still clinging to their toddler faces. If he didn't go, they would die. or become those ghost things. And Emily had been there. If he went, maybe he would find out why she never told him about it. Maybe he would find a piece of her that was still waiting. Noah took Aldrich's hand. The Emperor's grip was like iron, but warm. "Okay," Noah said. "I will go get your magic water. But if I get eaten, you have to pay for Mia's college tuition. Fully." "I do not know what college is," Aldrich said solemnly. "But I will buy her a kingdom." "Close enough," Noah sighed. He stood up, his legs shaking. "Are we leaving now?" "The storm has cleared the path," Aldrich said. "The moon is setting. Go now before the shadows return." Noah walked to the window. He looked toward the guest tower where Mia was sleeping safe, unaware that her father was about to walk into the heart of darkness. "Peekaboo," Noah whispered to the glass. "Daddy will be right back." He turned to Seren. She had already grabbed her medical satchel and a short sword. "Lead the way, Doctor," Noah said. "Let's go find a well." Together, the human gardener and the wolf healer stepped out of the nursery, leaving the safety of the stone walls behind, and headed down the spiral stairs toward the gaping maw of the Whisperwood. The forest waited silent and hungry, glowing with a pale, inviting light. The forest did not just get dark. It ceased to be a place of geography and became a place of memory. Noah Hart stumbled over a root that looked suspiciously like a petrified ribcage. He caught himself on the rough bark of a towering silverleaf tree, his breath coming in short white puffs against the chill air. The Whisperwood was living up to its name. The wind here did not rustle the leaves. It spoke. It murmured in a language that sat right on the edge of comprehension, a low-frequency static that made Noah's teeth ache. "If we make it back," Noah whispered, adjusting the strap of his heavy canvas bag, "I am going to charge the Emperor double for the overtime, triple if I lose a toe to frostbite." Dr. Seren, walking 5 paces ahead of him, did not turn around. She moved through the undergrowth with a fluid liquid grace that made Noah feel like a clumsy tractor in a ballet studio. The bioluminescent fungi on the forest floor reacted to her presence, blooming into soft blue light as her boots touched the moss, then fading the moment she passed. When Noah stepped on them, they just squished. "Keep your voice down," Seren commanded, her voice barely louder than the wind. "The forest is listening. It does not sound of commerce." "It does not seem to like the sound of breathing either," Noah muttered, but he fell silent. Above them, the canopy was so thick it blotted out the starfields, but the light of the 3 moons filtered through in shafts of solid silver. It gave the world a high-contrast monochromatic look, turning every shadow into a potential monster. Noah gripped the strap of his bag tighter. Inside was the empty crystal flask meant for the moon water and a small vial of Aldrich's blood. It felt like he was carrying a bomb. They had been walking for 3 hours. The path was marked not by signs, but by ancient runes carved into the tree's claw marks that glowed with a faint, dying pulse. Seren stopped abruptly at a clearing dominated by a massive fallen monolith. "We rest here for 2 minutes," she said, scanning the perimeter with eyes that reflected the moonlight like polished coins. "Hydrate. Do not sit on the stone. It is a grave marker." Noah leaned against a tree, his legs trembling. He looked at the monolith. It was covered in moss, but under the green he could see carvings. He squinted. The shapes were primitive, etched by claws thousands of years ago. They depicted large, wolf-like figures looming over smaller 2-legged figures. Noah felt a chill. "Is this a menu? Are these wolves eating people?" Seren walked over, her expression unreadable. She traced a line on the stone with a gloved finger. "No," she said softly. "Look closer. The large wolf is not attacking. It is crouching. Its ears are back, but its tail is low. And the small figure, see the hands." Noah leaned in. The small humanoid figure in the carving had its hands over its face. In the next panel of the carving, the hands were thrown wide, and the wolf was depicted mid-leap, not in aggression, but in what looked unmistakably like a pounce of joy. "It is a game," Noah realized the absurdity of it hitting him. "They are playing. It is a game of chase, or hide and seek." The first pack understood that the bond between parent and cub is forged in the moments between the hunt. "Seren," said her voice, sounding distant. "Somewhere along the way we forgot. We replaced play with ritual. We replaced joy with duty." "Well," Noah said, taking a sip from his canteen, "duty does not make you giggle until milk comes out of your nose, which is a crucial developmental milestone." Before Seren could respond, the temperature in the clearing plummeted. It did not get cold gradually. It was an instant vacuum of heat, as if the sun had been deleted from the universe. The blue bioluminescence on the ground turned a sickly, bruised purple. The murmuring wind stopped. The silence that followed was heavy, like water filling the lungs. "Noah," Seren said. Her voice was steady, but her ears were flattened against her skull. "Do not move. Do not run." "Why?" Noah asked, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. "What is it?" "Moon wraiths," she whispered. Shadows began to detach themselves from the trees. They were not physical wolves. They were silhouettes cut from the fabric of the night, vaguely lupine in shape, but shifting and smoking like dry ice. Where their eyes should have been, there were voids of absolute nothingness. They did not walk. They drifted their paws, leaving trails of frost on the ground. 1, 3, 7. They circled the clearing, tightening the noose. Noah felt a wave of nausea hit him. It wasn't just fear. It was a psychic pressure, a sudden, overwhelming onset of grief. "They feed on loss," Seren said, drawing the short sword from her belt. The blade hummed with energy, but her hand was shaking. "They are the spirits of children taken by the fever, and parents who died of heartbreak. They will show you your worst memories. Do not look at them." It was too late. A wraith lunged, not at them, but through them. It passed through Noah's chest like a blast of Arctic wind. Noah gasped and fell to his knees. The clearing vanished. He was no longer in the Whisperwood. He was standing in the rain on a muddy ridge. The air smelled of burning metal and ozone. He knew this smell. It was the smell of the crash site. "Emily!" he screamed. He saw the twisted wreckage of the transport skiff. He saw the fire licking at the rain-slicked metal. And he saw her. Emily was trapped under a beam, her white doctor's coat stained with mud and blood. She was reaching out to him. "Noah!" she cried, her voice distorted by pain. "Why didn't you come sooner? Where were you?" "I am here," Noah yelled, scrambling through the mud. But the mud was like quicksand. He could not move. He was frozen helpless, just as he had been 2 years ago when the news came. He was the husband who stayed home. The husband who wasn't there to save her. "You failed me," Emily Wraith whispered. Her face began to blur, turning into the featureless mask of the wolf spirit. "You are weak. You are just a gardener. You cannot save anyone." Beside him in the real world, Seren was screaming. She was on her knees, slashing wildly at the air. "I tried," Seren wailed, tears streaming down her fur-covered cheeks. "I gave them the silver, I chanted the verses, do not take them." She was seeing the twins. She was seeing Rowan and Kaya dead in their cribs, their bodies cold victims of her incompetence. The wraiths circled closer, their formless jaws opening to consume the despair radiating from the two travelers. Noah felt his soul beginning to fray. It would be so easy to just let go, to let the cold take him, to join Emily in the dark. "But you have to come back and play," Mia's voice. It cut through the roaring in his head. It was small, annoying and demanding. "If you do not come back, who is going to check under my bed for monsters?" Noah blinked. The image of the burning crash site flickered. He was Noah Hart. He was a father, and a father did not quit. "No," Noah grunted. He forced his hand to move. It felt like lifting a mountain, but he brought his hand up to his face. He covered his eyes. The darkness behind his eyelids was his own. It was not the wraith's darkness. "I am gone," Noah whispered, his voice trembling. "I am gone." The wraith, standing over him, paused. I was confused. The stream of visual grief had been cut off. Noah took a breath. He thought of Mia. He thought of the way Kaya had grabbed his thumb. He thought of the stupid, beautiful warmth of hot chocolate. "Peekaboo," Noah said. He threw his hands open. He didn't just move his hands. He projected the intent. "I am here. I am real. I am staying," the wraith shrieked. It was not a sound of aggression but of shock. The sudden assertion of presence of life disrupted its frequency. The shadow wolf recoiled its form, destabilizing, turning from solid darkness to mist. "It works!" Noah gasped. He scrambled toward Seren. She was on the ground, the sword lying uselessly by her side, her eyes wide and vacant. A large wraith was looming over her, drawing the life breath from her lungs. "Seren!" Noah yelled. He grabbed her shoulders and shook her. "Hey, look at me!" She did not see him. She was seeing dead children. "Seren!" Noah shouted again. "It is a game, you have to play the game." He let go of her shoulders and slapped his hands over her eyes. "Hey!" he yelled into her ear. "You are hiding, you are not there. The monsters cannot see you if you are not there." Seren gasped, her body stiffening. Noah's hands were warm on her face, blocking out the vision of the dead nursery. The immediate visual input of the nightmare was severed. "Now," Noah whispered urgently. "When I move my hands, you do not look at the ghosts. You look at me. You look at Noah. You see the guy who tells bad jokes." "Okay." He pulled his hands away. "Peekaboo." Seren blinked. Her golden eyes focused. She saw Noah. She saw his messy hair, the dirt on his nose, the sheer, terrified determination in his human face. "Noah," she whispered. The wraith that had been feeding on her let out a low whine. It tried to re-engage, to find the hook of grief, but Seren was no longer broadcasting it. She was anchored to Noah. She was anchored to the present. The wraith wavered. It looked at them, two small, warm things huddled in the cold, and it seemed to realize it could not eat them. Noah looked at the spirit. He didn't feel fear anymore. He felt a strange, aching pity. "We see you," Noah said softly to the wraith. "You are lost, but we are found. Go sleep." He covered his eyes one more time, then opened them with a soft smile. The wraith dissolved. It simply unspooled, turning into harmless mist that drifted up into the silver trees. The other shadows followed, melting away as the psychic pressure lifted. The silence returned, but this time it was the normal silence of a forest, not the silence of a grave. Seren slumped against Noah, her breathing ragged. She looked at him with a mixture of horror and awe. "You," she rasped. "You banished the moon wraiths with a nursery rhyme." "Psychological warfare," Noah said, his voice shaking as the adrenaline crashed. "They attack object permanence. They try to tell you that everything good is gone forever. The game proves that things come back." Seren slowly sheathed her sword. She looked at her hands, then at Noah. "I thought you were mad," she admitted. "When you covered your eyes, I thought your mind had broken." "It has been broken for years," Noah said, offering her a hand to stand up. "I just learned how to glue it back together with silly putty." Seren took his hand. Her grip was strong. She didn't let go immediately after standing. "We are close," she said, looking toward a dense thicket of thorns ahead. "The moonwell is just beyond the veil. If we survive the Guardians, the well should accept us." "Should?" Noah asked. "I really hate that word." "Let us go," Seren said, "before I lose my nerve." They pushed through the thorns. The branches tore at Noah's jacket, but he didn't care. He was numb, moving on autopilot. They emerged into a circular glade that seemed to exist outside of time. There was no wind here. The ground was covered in smooth white stones. In the center lay the moonwell. It was not a built structure. It was a natural pool, perfectly round, filled with a liquid that looked like liquid mercury. The strangest thing was the reflection. Above them, the 3 moons were high in the sky. But in the water, there were no moons. The water was black, reflecting nothing but the faces of those who stood at its edge. "We are here," Noah whispered. "Approach it," Seren said, her voice hushed with reverence. "It waits for the question." Noah walked to the edge of the pool. He looked down. He saw his own face, tired, unshaven, older than his years. Suddenly, the water rippled, though nothing had touched it. A sound vibrated through the glade. It wasn't a voice from the air. It was a voice inside his bone marrow. "Who returns it?" was the first howl, the primordial spirit of Lumeris. "Noah Hart," he said, feeling foolish introducing himself to a puddle. "I need help. For the twins." "The blood is not yours," the voice boomed. "The cubs are not yours. Why do you stand where kings fear to tread?" "Because their dad is busy running an empire and he is scared," Noah said honestly. "And because they are just kids. They should not burn." "Show us," the voice commanded. "Show us you understand the price of return. You speak of play. You speak of coming back. Do you know what it means to leave the water turned violent?" It swirled, rising up in a column that engulfed Noah's vision. He was back at the crash site. "Not again," Noah pleaded. "I already did this with the ghosts." "Look," the first howl commanded. "Look with open eyes." The scene was clearer this time. He saw the skiff. He saw the fire. He saw Emily. But this time, the perspective shifted. He wasn't looking through his own eyes from the rescue ridge. He was looking from above. He saw the moments before the explosion. He saw Emily drag a figure out of the wreckage. It was a female Lupin, the Wolf Empress. She was heavily pregnant. Her silver fur was singed, her leg crushed. Emily was unhurt. She could have run. The evacuation beacon was blinking green just 50 yards away. She could have made it. But the fuel tank was rupturing. The Empress could not move. Noah watched tears streaming down his face as Emily made a choice. She didn't run. She took her medical shield, a small personal force field generator, meant for one person, and she placed it over the Empress. She placed it over the unborn twins. "No," Noah whispered. Don't." He saw Emily look up. She looked right at the sky, right at where Noah was watching in the vision. She smiled. It wasn't a sad smile. It was the smile she gave Mia when she tucked her in. A smile that said, "It's okay." Then she wrapped her arms around the Empress, shielding the woman's head with her body, just as the tank exploded. The vision shattered. Noah fell forward, catching himself on the rim of the well. He was sobbing, racking heaves that tore at his chest. He had always thought she died because of an accident, because she was slow, because the universe was cruel. She hadn't died. She had traded. She had traded her life for Rowan and Kaya. She saved them. Noah gasped, the realization rewriting the architecture of his grief. She chose them. She gave the gift of tomorrow. The first howl rumbled the water, settling back into a calm mirror. She came to us before the end. She spoke to the water. The water rippled again. A shape formed in the silver liquid. It was Emily's face. Not a memory, but a message recorded in the medium of the planet itself. The water whispered in Emily's voice. "If he comes, if the man with the sad eyes comes back, tell him I didn't leave him. I just went to hide so they could be found. Tell him to finish the game." Noah stared at the water. She knew. She knew he would come back. She knew he would wind up here trying to save the very lives she died for. "You planned this," Noah choked out a laugh, wiping his nose on his sleeve. "You stubborn, brilliant woman. You set me up." He reached into his bag and pulled out the vial of Aldrich's blood. "Okay," Noah said to the well. "I understand. Absence isn't the end. It is just a pause in the game. She went away so they could stay. Now I have to make sure they stay." He poured the drop of royal blood into the silver pool. "Seren," Noah said. "Now." Seren stepped forward. She began to chant the binding song, her voice clear and strong. Noah plunged his hands into the freezing water. He didn't think about the magic. He didn't think about the empire. He thought of the peekaboo. He thought of the moment of suspension, the dark split second when his hands covered his eyes. The fear. And then the release. The joy of return. He poured that feeling into the water. You are safe. The scary part is just a game. You always come back. The moon well erupted with light. It wasn't the cold silver of the moon anymore. It was warm. It was golden like the sun on a kitchen table. The water spiraled into the crystal flask Noah was holding, filling it with a glowing viscous liquid. Moon water. The voice faded. Take it. The cycle is closed. Noah capped the flask. It was warm in his hands. It felt like holding a living heart. He slumped back onto the white stones, completely spent. Seren sat down next to him, her legs folding under her. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The forest was quiet, but it was a respectful quiet now. I did not know, Seren said softly. About the Empress. The Emperor never speaks of the crash. We thought the human doctor died because she was fragile. She was steel, Noah said, clutching the flask. She was titanium. She saved the airline. Seren looked at Noah with a new expression. It wasn't just respect. It was something deeper, a recognition of shared scars. And you saved us from the wraiths. You saved me. I just played a game, Noah deflected, looking away. Stop it, Seren said sharply. She reached out and grabbed his chin, turning his face toward her. Stop making yourself small. You walked into the abyss, and you stared it down. You are not just a gardener, Noah Hart. Noah looked into her eyes. They were gold and alien and beautiful. In the adrenaline haze, the distance between them, species, culture, history, felt non-existent. They were just two survivors on a rock. Okay, Noah whispered. I am a gardener who fights ghosts. It is a niche skill set. Seren smiled. It was a real smile, one that reached her eyes. The twins are lucky, she said, to have a father who knows how to come back. The moment hung in the air, fragile and electric. Noah leaned in slightly. He didn't know what he was doing. He just knew he didn't want to be alone anymore. Seren didn't pull away. Her breath hitched. Then a sound tore through the night. It was a howl, but not the ancient, mystical howl of the well. This was a physical, agonized scream from miles away. It came from the direction of the keep. And then another sound, the deep, booming roar of the Wolf Emperor. Seren jumped to her feet, her ears swiveling toward the sound. The twins, she gasped. The medicine has worn off completely. The fever is breaking them. Noah scrambled up, shoving the flask into his bag. How long do we have? None, Seren said, her face pale. If Aldrich is roaring like that, he is losing control. He is shifting. If he shifts near the cubs while they are in flux, his alpha energy will crush them. We have the water, Noah said, checking the strap. We run. We run now. It is 3 miles uphill, Seren warned. I don't care, Noah said, a hard edge entering his voice. I promised Mia I would be back. And I promised Emily I would finish the game. He looked at the dark path ahead. Let's go. They took off running. Not the cautious hike of the journey in, but a desperate lung-burning sprint. They ran through the silver trees, over the roots, through the thorns. Above them, the 3 moons seemed to turn a shade redder, as if the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting to see if the human with the flask could outrun the tragedy that was chasing him. They burst through the gates of Moonfang Keep an hour later. Noah's lungs were burning like he had inhaled glass. His legs were numb. The courtyard was in chaos. Guards were running toward the upper ward. The air smelled of burnt ozone and blood. Out of the way! Seren screamed, flashing her medical insignia. The guards parted. They sprinted up the spiral stairs. Noah stumbled his knee, hitting the stone, but he scrambled up and kept going. He could hear the screaming now. It wasn't human. It was the sound of animals in a trap. They reached the nursery doors. They were blown off their hinges. Noah stopped in the doorway, gasping for breath. The room was wrecked. The cribs were overturned. In the center of the room, Aldrich was on his knees. He was half-shifted, a terrifying, monstrous form, half man, half wolf, struggling to contain his own power. He was roaring, trying to create a barrier with his body. And the twins, Rowan and Kaya, were no longer in the cribs. They were huddled in the corner, climbing the walls. They were almost fully wolf, now slick with sweat, their fur matted their eyes, glowing a blinding, chaotic white. They were snarling at their own father, not recognizing him. "Daddy!" Mia's voice came from under a heavy oak table where she was hiding. Noah saw her. She was terrified, but she was safe. "Noah!" Aldrich roared, his voice distorted by wolf teeth. "Do it now!" The twins turned. They saw Noah. They crouched, ready to spring. These weren't toddlers anymore. They were predators fueled by ancient magic. One bite could take Noah's arm off. Noah stepped into the room. He didn't draw a weapon. He didn't scream. He pulled the flask of glowing moon water from his bag. He uncorked it. The golden light spilled out, cutting through the red haze of the room. Rowan hissed, baring his fangs. He lunged. Noah didn't flinch. He dropped to his knees, right in the path of the pouncing monster. He slammed the flask down on the floor and covered his face with his hands. "Where is Noah?" he shouted, his voice cracking with exhaustion and love. Rowan froze in midair, landing awkwardly, inches from Noah's knee. The familiar words. The pattern. It cut through the feral noise in his brain. Noah waited. He could feel the heat of the beast's breath on his hands. This was it. The final turn. "Peekaboo!" Noah threw his hands wide. But this time, he didn't just smile. He grabbed the moon water and splashed it upward, an arc of golden rain that caught the light of the moons. The water hit the twins, and the nursery exploded in light. The golden light of the moon water still hung in the air of the nursery, a fine mist that smelled of ozone and sun-drenched stones cutting through the heavy metallic scent of the storm. But the chaos had not yet settled. The twins, Rowan and Kaya, were crouched in the corners of the room, their small bodies trembling with the aftershocks of the feral transformation. Their eyes were wide white and unseeing, and low growls rumbled in their throats like distant thunder. Noah Hart stood in the center of the room, his chest heaving. He held the crystal flask as if it were a grenade. "Clear the room," Noah ordered. His voice was not loud, but it carried a strange, resonant weight that surprised even him. "Too many heartbeats, too much fear. They can smell it." Aldrich, who was still kneeling, half-shifted and panting, looked up. The Wolf Emperor's face was a map of agony, but he nodded. He gestured to the guards. "Leave us," Aldrich commanded, his voice a gravelly rasp. "Take the torches. Leave only the moonlight." The guards hesitated only for a second before retreating. The heavy oak doors groaned shut, leaving only 5 people in the vast wrecked chamber: Noah, Aldrich, Dr. Seren, Mia, who was peeking out from under the heavy table, and the 2 terrified, monstrous children. "Dr. Seren," Noah said, turning to the healer, "I need you to mix this, now." He handed her the flask of moon water. It was warm to the touch, glowing with a soft internal luminescence. "Mix it with what?" Seren asked, her hands shaking slightly as she took the vessel. "The silver," Noah said. "The medicine they hate. The Moonwell told me it said the silver anchors the body, but the water anchors the soul. We have to combine them." Seren moved to the smashed remains of her apothecary table. Miraculously, the silver bowl and the pestle were intact. She poured the thick, viscous liquid silver into the bowl. It looked cold, uninviting. Then she uncorked the moon water. As she poured the golden liquid into the silver, a hiss filled the room. It sounded like a sigh of relief. The mixture swirled, the harsh metallic gray softening, dissolving into a pearlescent, shimmering white fluid that looked like liquid starlight. It changed the temperature, Seren whispered, touching the bowl. It is no longer cold. It matches the body heat of a healthy cub. Okay, Noah said, wiping sweat and grime from his forehead. Aldrich, stay back. If you approach them, your alpha instinct will try to dominate them. They cannot be dominated right now. They have to be invited back. Aldrich nodded, retreating into the shadows near the balcony, his eyes burning gold in the dark. Noah walked toward the twins. He moved slowly, telegraphing every motion. He sat down on the cold stone floor, crossing his legs. He was no longer the gardener or the funny human. He was the anchor. Hey, Noah said softly. Rowan hissed, his claws scraping against the stone. I know, Noah whispered. It hurts. The world is too big and too loud. He dipped his fingers into the bowl Seren held out to him. The liquid was warm and tingling. Mia, Noah said without turning around. You help me, okay? You know the song. From under the table, a small, trembling voice began to hum. It was the Peekaboo song, a nonsense melody Noah had made up years ago during a thunderstorm in Ohio. Hide the moon, hide the sun, where has all the giggling gone? The twins' ears twitched. The familiar sound cut through the red haze of their instinct. Noah raised his dripping hands. He took a deep breath. He was terrified, not of the wolves, but of failing them. He covered his face. The room went silent. Where is Noah? Noah asked into the darkness of his palms. He visualized the connection. He thought of the moonwell. He thought of the way the roots of the star root plants gripped the soil. I am here. You are here. We are safe. Peekaboo. Noah opened his hands. He reached out, not quickly, but with a deliberate fluid motion, and touched his wet fingertips to Rowan's forehead. The boy flinched, a snarl rising in his throat, but then the liquid touched his skin. It did not sizzle or burn. It absorbed. Where Noah's finger touched, the angry red flush of the moon fever didn't vanish. It changed. The chaotic boiling heat seemed to cool instantly, turning from the color of fresh blood to the color of soft, polished silver. The mark didn't disappear. It became a pattern, a swirl of silver fur and skin intricate as a snowflake bloomed on Rowan's forehead. It is rewriting the energy, Seren gasped, leaning in closer. It is not fighting the wolf spirit. It is teaching it. Noah dipped his hands again. He turned to Kaya. She was shivering, her small body stuck in a painful halfway point between girl and wolf. He covered his face. Where is Noah? Kaya stopped shivering. She watched his hands. Peekaboo. He touched her chest right over her frantically beating heart. The liquid light sank in. Kaya let out a long breath, her ribs expanding. The red veins visible under her skin cooled, turning into beautiful lacy silver markings that wrapped around her shoulders like a shawl of moonlight. More, Noah whispered to himself. We have to do it until the heat is gone. He fell into a rhythm, a trance. Dip, cover. Where is Noah? Reveal. Touch. Dip, cover. Where is Noah? Reveal. Touch. With every round of the game, the twins became less monstrous. The elongated jaws receded. The terrifying claws retracted into soft, chubby fingers. But the silver markings remained glowing faintly on their skin, a testament that the fever hadn't been defeated. It had been integrated. It was no longer a fire burning the house down. It was a fire contained in the hearth. The Lupin guards, who had crept back to the doorway, unable to stay away, watched in stunned silence. They were warriors who solved problems with steel and fang. They were watching a human defeat a curse with a nursery rhyme. But as the ritual went on, Noah began to feel heavy. It was the 50th time he had covered his face. He was exhausted. He had walked through a haunted forest, faced wraiths, and confronted the spirit of the planet. As he brought his hands up to his eyes, one more time, the darkness felt different. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was a pull. Come, a voice whispered in the static. It sounded like Emily. Come and rest, Noah. You have done enough. Noah felt his body go numb. He felt himself drifting backward away from the nursery, away from the stone floor. It was peaceful in the dark. No more fear. No more widower's grief. Just quiet. His hands were over his face. He forgot to take them away. In the nursery, the silence stretched too long. "Noah," Seren whispered. Noah sat frozen, his hands covering his eyes. He wasn't moving. The glow from the moon water on his fingers began to flicker, turning cold. "Noah," Seren said louder, grabbing his shoulder. "The ritual, finish it." His skin was freezing. He wasn't breathing. "Bah!" Mia screamed. She scrambled out from under the table. She didn't care about the wolves or the Emperor. She ran to her father. She grabbed his wrists. They were locked rigid. "Bah, open your eyes!" Mia yelled, tears streaming down her face. "You have to do the peekaboo you promised to come back." In the void, Noah heard her. It was a tiny sound like a bell ringing miles away. "You promised." The peace of the darkness was tempting, but the promise was stronger. "I am not done playing," Noah thought. With a gasp that sounded like a drowning man breaking the surface of the ocean, Noah ripped his hands away from his face. "Peekaboo!" he shouted, his voice cracking. He lunged forward, slapping his wet palms onto the cheeks of both Rowan and Kaya simultaneously. The reaction was instantaneous. The twins' eyes rolled back. The last of the red heat evaporated from their bodies in a cloud of steam. They collapsed forward, falling into Noah's arms not as monsters, but as two very heavy, very asleep toddlers. Noah held them. He buried his face in their necks. They smelled like milk and rain. They were cool. Their hearts were beating in a slow, steady rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. The silver markings on their skin pulsed once bright and strong, and then faded to a subtle, shimmering tattoo that looked like starlight caught under the dermis. "Stable," Seren whispered, her hand hovering over Kaya's neck. "Pulse is 70. Temperature is normal. The moon fever is gone. No, not gone. It is dormant. It is part of them now." Noah didn't answer. He couldn't. He just sat there holding the heirs to the Wolf Empire, shaking uncontrollably. Mia threw her arms around Noah's neck from behind, burying her face in his shoulder. "You took too long," she sobbed. "You stayed hid too long." "I know, Peanut," Noah rasped, clutching her arm. "I am sorry I got stuck. But I am back." A shadow fell over them. Aldrich was standing there. He had shifted fully back to human form, though he was naked from the waist up his breeches, torn his chest heaving. He looked wild, ancient, and utterly undone. He dropped to his knees. The sound of his knees hitting the stone echoed like a gavel. He reached out. His hands, large enough to crush Noah's skull, trembled as he touched Rowan's hair. Then Kaya's cheek. They were sleeping. Just sleeping. Aldrich made a sound that no one had ever heard a Wolf Emperor make. It was a sob that broke from the bottom of his chest, a sound of relief so profound it hurt to listen to. He scooped all of them up. He didn't just hug his children. He wrapped his massive arms around the twins, around Mia, and around Noah. He pulled them all into a crushing embrace that smelled of sweat blood and fierce animal gratitude. Noah felt his ribs creak. "Can't breathe," Noah squeaked. "You gave them back to me," Aldrich wept into Noah's shoulder, ignoring the protest. "You brought them back from the dark." The Emperor pulled back, holding Noah by the shoulders. His golden eyes were wet, blazing, with an intensity that was terrifying in its sincerity. He turned to the room. The guards were back, peering in. The nurses were weeping in the hallway. "Hear me!" Aldrich roared, his voice shaking the dust from the tapestries. "From this night forth, let no wolf in Moonfang keep speak of meaningless play. Let no one say that gentleness is weakness." He looked at Noah. "This human, this father, has conquered the curse of our bloodline with a game. He is the bravest warrior I have ever stood beside." Noah blushed so hard he felt dizzy. "I think you are overselling it, Your Majesty. I just really wanted to go to sleep." Then sleep you shall, Aldrich declared, in the finest silk, guarded by my own blade. The next 2 days were a blur of bizarre celebrity for Noah Hart. News traveled fast in a telepathic wolf society. By the time Noah woke up the next afternoon, after sleeping for 18 hours straight, the story of the peekaboo ritual had morphed into legend. Some versions said Noah wrestled a ghost. Others said he summoned the moon goddess herself. When Noah finally ventured out to the courtyard to get fresh air, the atmosphere of the keep had shifted. Before the humans, the cooks, the gardeners, the menders walked with their heads down, scurrying along the edges of the path. The Lupin ignored them or looked at them with mild disdain. Today, as Noah walked toward the garden, a group of young Lupin trainees, teenagers with lanky limbs and half-formed ears, stopped sparring. They stood up straight and nodded to him. It wasn't a bow of servitude. It was a nod of recognition. Game recognized game. But the strangest thing was the children. In the lower courtyard, a group of Lupin cubs were playing. Usually their games were rough wrestling, chasing, biting. Today, 3 of them were sitting in a circle. One had a cloth over his head. "Where is Garrick?" the cub growled playfully. He pulled the cloth off. "Peekaboo." The other cubs howled with laughter, tumbling over each other. Noah watched a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. It was ridiculous. It was beautiful. "You have started a revolution," a voice said behind him. Noah turned. Dr. Seren was standing there. She was out of her stiff medical robes, wearing a simpler tunic of gray linen. She looked softer, less like a statue carved from ice, and more like a person. "I think I just started a trend," Noah said. "Like yo-yos. Give it a week, they will be bored." "I do not think so," Seren said, walking up to stand beside him. "You changed the nature of the moon fever. Look." She pointed to the nursery tower balcony. Rowan and Kaya were there, held by a nurse. They were waving at the guards below. On their skin, the faint, silver markings caught the sunlight. "The fever used to be a sentence of madness," Seren said softly. "Now it is a mark of heritage. The elders are saying the silver patterns are a sign of the moon's blessing. They say the human taught the wolf how to wear the light." "It was the moon water," Noah deflected, feeling the familiar itch of imposter syndrome. "I was just the delivery guy." "Come with me," Seren said. "I need to check your vitals. You spent too long in the void, Noah." She led him not to the main infirmary, but to a smaller private study filled with dried herbs and books. She had him sit on a table. She checked his pulse. She shone a light in his eyes. Her hands were cool and professional, but there was a tremor in them. "Your heart rate is still elevated," she murmured, her hand lingering on his wrist. "That might be because a very scary, very beautiful doctor is staring at me," Noah joked weakly. Seren didn't laugh. She dropped her stethoscope. She looked at him, her eyes wide and swimming with unshed tears. "I thought you were gone," she whispered. Her voice broke. "When you did not move, when your hands stayed on your face, I felt the cold. It was the same cold I felt when I lost my first patient. I thought, not him, please not him." "Seren," Noah said gently. "I have spent my life fighting death with science and magic," she confessed, her composure crumbling. "But I have never been so afraid as I was in that silence. I realized I do not want to live in a keep where you do not make terrible jokes." Noah's heart hammered against his ribs. He reached out and took her hand. It was a bold move. Touching a Lupin without permission was usually a good way to lose a finger. "I am not going anywhere," Noah said. "I promise. I have a lot more bad jokes. I haven't even started on the knock-knock ones yet." Seren looked down at their joined hands. Her thumb brushed his knuckles. "Knock-knock?" she asked, confused. "I will teach you later," Noah whispered. She looked up. The distance between them closed. It wasn't cinematic. It was clumsy. Noah leaned in hesitant, and Seren leaned in, scanning his face as if looking for a symptom. When their lips met, it was soft, tentative. Serene smelled of crushed mint and rain. Noah smelled of cocoa butter and exhaustion. It lasted only a few seconds, but it shifted the axis of Noah's world again. Seren pulled back, looking flushed. She cleared her throat, instantly, trying to regain her professional demeanor. "Your, respiration seems to have stabilized," she stammered. Noah grinned, his face burning. "Are you sure? I feel like I am having a cardiac event." "Then perhaps you need a dedicated physician to monitor you closely," Seren said, a playful glint returning to her eyes. "For the foreseeable future." "I would like that," Noah said. "I would like that very much." The door creaked open. "Are you kissing?" Mia asked loudly. Noah and Seren jumped apart as if they had been electrocuted. Mia walked in, followed by the twins who were waddling behind her, like loyal ducklings. Rowan had a stuffed bear in his mouth. Kaya was dragging the yellow quilt. "We were checking tonsils," Noah lied badly. "You were kissing," Mia declared. She walked over and hugged Noah's leg, then reached out and hugged Seren's waist. "It is okay," Mia said. "I like Miss Seren. She smells nice. And she helped you save the wolf puppies." Seren looked down at the human child, hugging her. Slowly, awkwardly, she patted Mia's head. "Thank you, Mia," Seren said softly. Rowan waddled up to Noah. He dropped the slobbery bear on Noah's foot. He looked up with his big golden eyes. He raised his pudgy hands to his face. "Boo!" Rowan shouted. Noah laughed, picking the boy up. "Close enough, buddy, close enough." Aldrich appeared in the doorway. He was dressed in formal ceremonial robes, black velvet embroidered with silver thread. He looked every inch the Emperor again, but the hardness around his eyes was gone. He watched the scene, the human gardener, holding the wolf prince, the doctor, the daughter, a chaotic blended family that defied every law of Lumeris tradition. "The council is gathered," Aldrich said. His voice was serious but warm. "Am I in trouble?" Noah asked, putting Rowan down. "No," Aldrich said, "but a decision must be made." The great hall of Moonfang Keep was intimidating. The ceiling was lost in shadows, and the walls were lined with the banners of the 12 clans. Noah stood in the center of the circle. Aldrich sat on the obsidian throne. The elders of the pack sat around them. "Noah Hart," Aldrich spoke, his voice echoing. "You have done a service to the crown that cannot be repaid with gold. You have saved the bloodline. But more than that, you have taught us a lesson we had forgotten. You taught us that strength without joy is brittle." Noah shifted uncomfortably. "I just did what any dad would do." "Precisely," Aldrich said. "And that is why I am offering you a position. It is a new title, one that has not existed since the golden age of the first pack." Aldrich stood up. "I name you Keeper of Play." A murmur went through the elders. "Your duty," Aldrich continued, "will be to oversee the development of the young. Not just the royals, but all cubs in the keep. You will teach them your games. You will teach them to laugh at the dark. You will ensure that no child in Moonfang Keep grows up fearing their own nature." Noah stared at the Emperor. It was an insane offer. He was a human. They were wolves. "You want me to be the royal kindergarten teacher?" Noah asked. "Keeper of Play sounds more dignified," Aldrich noted dryly. "But yes, you will have a permanent residence in the keep, a salary that will ensure Mia never wants for anything, and the protection of the pack forever." Noah looked at Mia, who was sitting with Seren on a bench. She gave him a thumbs up. He looked at Seren. She nodded, her eyes shining. Noah started. "I would be honored." "Good," Aldrich said. "But before you accept, before you bind your life to ours permanently, there is something you must know." The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. The warmth evaporated. A heavy, somber weight descended. "Clear the hall," Aldrich commanded the elders. "Leave us." The elders rose and filed out silently. "Seren, stay," Aldrich said. "Mia, stay. And bring Isela." From the shadows behind the throne, an ancient lupin woman hobbled forward. She was bent with age, her fur entirely white, her eyes cloudy with cataracts. Noah recognized her. She was the midwife who had been there when the twins were born. And Noah realized with a sudden jolt she had been there the night of the crash. "Noah," Aldrich said, stepping down from the throne. He didn't look like an emperor now. He looked like a man about to confess a sin. "You believe that your wife Emily died in a senseless accident," Aldrich said. "You believe she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time." "She died saving the Empress," Noah said. "The Moonwell showed me. I know she was a hero, Aldrich. You don't have to protect me from that." "The well showed you her sacrifice," Aldrich said quietly. "But it did not show you why she was there. It did not show you why the Moonwell waited specifically for a man named Hart." Aldrich gestured to the old midwife. "Isella," Aldrich said. "Tell him." The old woman looked at Noah. Her voice was like dry leaves scraping together. "The human Dr. Emily," Isella wheezed. "She did not just come to the keep to heal strangers, Noah Hart. She came because she made a promise made 10 years ago, to the Emperor." Noah frowned. "10 years ago, we weren't even married then. She was just doing her residency tours." "She was here," Aldrich said, his voice tight. "Before she met you. Before I met the Empress." Noah looked between them. A cold knot formed in his stomach. "What are you saying?" Noah whispered. "I am saying," Aldrich said, meeting Noah's eyes with a painful, unwavering gaze, "that the love that saved my children did not begin with you, Noah. It began with her, and it began with me." The doors of the great hall were shut tight. The silence was deafening. Noah stood in the center of the circle, the keeper of play, realizing that the game had just changed completely. The ghost of Emily was not just a memory. She was the architect of everything happening in this room. And Noah was about to learn exactly how deep the rabbit hole went. The heavy oak doors of the great hall slammed shut, sealing the circle of truth from the rest of the world. The sound reverberated through the vast stone chamber, like the final note of a funeral dirge. The air was thick, not with magic this time, but with the suffocating weight of secrets that had been held for too long. Noah Hart stood in the center of the room, feeling exposed. He looked at the faces around him. There was Aldrich, the Wolf Emperor, who looked less like a ruler and more like a man bracing for a blow. There was Isella, the ancient midwife, whose milky eyes seemed to see through Noah's skin to the bone. There was Dr. Seren standing close to him, her presence a warm anchor in the rising tide of tension. And there was Mia sitting on a velvet cushion, holding the hand of the sleeping Prince Rowan, blissfully unaware that the adults were about to dissect the past. 10 years, Isella's voice scratched the silence. It sounded like dry parchment being crumpled. It was 10 years ago that the human healer first walked through the gates of Moonfang Keep. She was younger then. Her hair was like sunlight not yet touched by the gray of sorrow. Noah frowned. "Emily and I met 7 years ago. In Ohio. She was working at the university hospital." "Before that," Aldrich said, his voice low and rumbling. He did not look at Noah. He looked at the empty space above the throne as if watching a memory play out on the stone walls. "Before she was your wife, Noah Hart, she was the first human to ever be invited into the inner circle of the Lumeris High Council." Aldrich stepped down from the dais. He walked until he was standing directly in front of Noah. The size difference was intimidating, but Aldrich's posture was one of submission, not dominance. "She came to study our biology," Aldrich continued. "We were dying of a plague the scale wrought. Human medicine was our last hope. Emily was fearless. She walked into the quarantine zones where even my strongest warriors refused to go. She touched the sick without flinching." "That sounds like her," Noah whispered. He could see it. Emily with her clipboard and her stubborn determination. "I was a young prince then," Aldrich said. arrogant, angry that we needed help from a frail species. I challenged her every day. I told her she did not understand the spirit of the wolf. She told me I did not understand the science of survival. A ghost of a smile touched Aldrich's lips, fleeting and sad. We fought. We argued. And somewhere in the noise of our debates, we found a silence that was shared. Noah felt a cold stone drop into his stomach. He knew where this was going. He looked at Seren. She lowered her eyes, confirming what she must have suspected. "You and Emily," Noah said, his voice flat. "It was brief," Aldrich said quickly, looking Noah in the eye. "And it was impossible. I was betrothed to the Empress to be a union required to unite the clans. Emily had her life on Earth. We knew there was no future. When the plague was cured, she left. We parted with respect, with affection. But it ended. Completely." Noah let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He felt a strange, prickly heat in his chest. Jealousy. Maybe. Betrayal. No, that wasn't fair. Emily had a life before him. He had dated people before her. But hearing it from a 7-foot-tall werewolf emperor gave it a different weight. "Why are you telling me this?" Noah asked. "To tell me I was the second choice." "No," Aldrich said fiercely. "To tell you that you were the right choice." Aldrich paced away, his cape swirling. "She returned to Earth. She met you. She wrote to me once a formal letter announcing the birth of a daughter. She said she had found a man who made her laugh. She said I was fire and duty, but you were warmth and home. She loved you, Noah. Never doubt that." "But she came back," Noah said. 2 years ago, for the birth of the twins." "Yes," Isela croaked from her chair. "The Empress was having a difficult labor. The twins were powerful. Their energy was tearing her apart. We sent a distress signal. Emily answered." Noah remembered that day. Emily, packing her bags in a hurry. "It is just a consult, Noah. An old friend needs help. I will take Mia. It will be a field trip." She had made it sound so casual. "She came," Aldrich said. "She stabilized the Empress. But then the storm came. The rock slide." "I know," Noah said, his voice cracking. "I saw the report. The cave collapsed. She was crushed." "That is the official story," Aldrich said. "The story I put in the records to protect you, to protect her memory from being turned into a political tool." Aldrich stopped. He looked at the twins sleeping in the corner. The cave did not just collapse Noah. The energy of the unborn twins triggered a seismic resonance. The roof began to fall directly over the Empress. Noah's mind flashed back to the vision in the moonwell, the woman shielding the other woman. "She did not run," Noah whispered. "She used her shield." "She gave her shield to the Empress," Aldrich corrected. "She used her body to cover the shield generator to ensure the batteries did not disconnect upon impact. She held the line for 4 minutes, while the mountain came down on her back." Silence stretched in the room, thick and heavy. "When we dug them out," Aldrich said, his voice breaking, "the Empress was alive. The twins were alive. Emily was broken, but she was not dead." Noah's head snapped up. "What?" "She was fading," Aldrich said rapidly, the words spilling out like a confession he had held back for too long. "Her internal injuries were fatal. Human medicine, lupin magic, nothing could knit her back together. She knew it. She asked for one thing. She asked to be taken to the Moonwell." "The Moonwell," Noah breathed. "That is why the first howl knew her." "I carried her," Aldrich said. "I ran through the forest with her in my arms. We reached the water. She was in agony, Noah, but she was smiling. She spoke to the spirit of the planet. She made a pact." Aldrich fell to his knees again, right in front of Noah. "She told the Moonwell that her life force was fading, but her love was not. She offered the last of her strength to bind the souls of the twins to the earth, to keep them from drifting into the void. That is why they survived the birth. They have been living on the echo of Emily's sacrifice." But the fever, Seren interjected her mind, racing to connect the medical dots. The fever was the rejection. The fever was the incompletion, Aldrich said. Emily knew she was human. She knew her spirit alone could not anchor wolf cubs forever. She told the first howl, "I am leaving a door open. If the man I love returns, if Noah comes, let his joy be the key that locks the door. Let his laughter finish what my sacrifice started." Noah staggered back. He hit the stone pillar behind him and slid down to the floor. It wasn't just a game. The peekaboo, the silly simple game he played with Mia. Emily knew. She knew it was his superpower. She knew that while she was the brilliant scientist who could save a life with a scalpel, Noah was the father who could save a soul with a smile. "She bet on me," Noah whispered, tears spilling over his cheeks. "She bet everything on the fact that I would come here, that I would find them." "She told me," Aldrich said softly, "that you would not come for glory. You would not come for money. You would come because a child was crying." And she was right. Noah buried his face in his hands. The overwhelming weight of Emily's love crashed over him. She hadn't left him. In her final moments, bleeding out in a mystical forest, she had built a bridge for him. She had ensured that her death wasn't just an end, but a beginning for him, for Mia, for the twins. "I thought she died senselessly," Noah choked out. "I was so angry at the universe." "She died a queen," Aldrich said fiercely. "She died a savior. And she died your wife, Noah. Her last word was not my name. It was yours." Mia stood up from her cushion. She walked over to her father. She didn't fully understand the politics or the magic, but she understood the tears. "Daddy," she said, patting his knee. "Mommy is in the water, right? Like in the movie." Noah looked up at his daughter. He saw Emily's eyes in her face. "Yeah, Peanut," Noah smiled through the tears. "Mommy is in the water, and in the walls, and in the twins." He looked at Rowan and Kaya. They were no longer just the Emperor's children. They were the living vessels of Emily's legacy. They were alive because she died. "I am sorry I didn't tell you," Aldrich said, his head bowed. "I thought if you knew she suffered it would break you. I thought if you knew about us long ago you would hate me. I was a coward." Noah looked at the Wolf Emperor. He saw a man who had lost the woman he once loved, and then had to watch the husband of that woman save his children. The humility required for that was staggering. Noah stood up. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He walked over to Aldrich. He extended his hand. "You are not a coward, Aldrich," Noah said. "You are just a dad who made a hard call." Aldrich looked at the hand. He took it. "We both loved her," Noah said firmly. "Differently, at different times. But we both loved her. That doesn't make us enemies. It makes us something else." "Brothers," Aldrich suggested, his voice thick with emotion. "Bound by the ghost of the sun." "I was going to say weirdly complicated in-laws." Noah joked, his voice shaking a little. "But brothers works too," Mia giggled. "Does that mean Mr. Wolf is my uncle?" Aldrich looked down at the little girl. He knelt on one knee. "It means," Aldrich said solemnly, "that I am your Grand Wolf, if you will have me." Mia thought about it. "Do Grand Wolves give good presents?" "The best," Aldrich promised. "I have a vault full of shiny rocks." "Okay," Mia decided. "You can be Grand Wolf." The tension in the room broke. It shattered like glass, leaving behind something clean and new. Seren walked over to Noah. She didn't say anything. She just slipped her hand into his. It was a public claim, right in front of the Emperor and the elders' empty chairs. "So," Noah said, squeezing her hand, "the curse is broken. The secret is out. What now?" Aldrich stood up. He looked at the map of the galaxy painted on the ceiling of the hall. "Now," the Emperor said, "you choose." "Choose what your life," Aldrich said. "You can take the gold I promised. You can take Mia and return to Earth. You can buy a house with a lawn that does not try to eat you. You can live in safety. No one would blame you. You have done your part." Aldrich paused, looking at the twins. "Or you can stay. You can take the title of Keeper of Play. You can help us rebuild. You can help us remember how to be gentle." Noah looked at the heavy stone walls. He looked at the window, where the 3 moons were shining down on the forest. He thought about Earth. He thought of his small apartment, the bills, the loneliness of the last 2 years. He thought of the way people looked at him there with pity. The poor widower. Then he looked at Seren. Her eyes were full of hope she was trying to hide. He looked at the twins who were sleeping peacefully because of a game he invented. He looked at Mia, who was currently trying to braid the fur on Aldrich's arm. "Earth has better pizza," Noah mused aloud. Seren's face fell slightly. "But," Noah continued, "the commute is terrible." He turned to Mia. "What do you think, Peanut, Ohio, or the Magic Wolf Castle?" Mia didn't even look up from her braiding. "Here. The moon is bigger here. And when I laugh here, the walls laugh back." Noah smiled. "She has a point." He turned to Aldrich. "I will stay," Noah said. "But I have conditions." Aldrich raised an eyebrow. "Name them." 1. Noah counted on his finger. "I want a real kitchen in my tower. I cannot live on roasted meat forever. I need an oven." "Done," Aldrich said. 2. I want Seren promoted. She is the best doctor you have. She should be head healer, not just an assistant." Seren gasped, squeezing his hand hard enough to bruise. "Done," Aldrich agreed. "She has earned it 10 times over." "And 3, Noah said, his expression turning serious. "We build a memorial, not just in the records, a real one, for Emily, in the garden where the kids play, so they know who gave them the chance to play." Aldrich nodded slowly. "It shall be carved from the white stone of the Moonwell itself." "Then we have a deal," Noah said. The transition was not overnight, but it was steady. Spring came to Moonfang Keep. The snow melted, revealing the purple moss and the silver-leaf trees. Noah Hart, the former gardener, became a fixture of the court. He did not wear robes. He wore his cargo pants and flannel shirt standing out like a sore thumb in the sea of leather and armor, but no one questioned him. He held classes in the lower courtyard. At first it was just the twins and Mia. Then the children of the servants joined. Then the children of the guards. It was a strange sight to see a human man teaching a group of apex predators how to play duck, duck, goose. "No, no," Noah would scold a young wolf who got too excited. "We do not bite the goose, we tag the goose. Gentle paws." Seren watched from the infirmary window. She was wearing the gold-trimmed robes of the head healer now. She watched Noah run, stumble, and laugh. She watched the way the sunlight hit his hair. She walked down to the garden. "Class dismissed," Noah shouted. "Go wash your paws, snack time in 10 minutes." The cubs scattered, yipping and tumbling. Noah walked over to Seren, wiping sweat from his brow. "You look exhausted," Seren said, handing him a flask of water. "Cardio," Noah panted. "Wolf tag is high-intensity interval training. I am going to have abs of steel by summer." "You already have adequate abdominal muscles," Seren said clinically, though her eyes were dancing. "Flattery will get you everywhere, doctor," Noah grinned. He reached out and pulled her closer. They stood under the shade of a great tree. It was easy now. The awkwardness of the first kiss was gone, replaced by a comfortable, steady rhythm. "How are the twins?" Noah asked. "Thriving," Seren said. "The silver markings are fading to a pale white. Their temperaments are balanced." Rowan laughed today when he dropped his spoon. He did not growl. "Progress," Noah nodded. "Noah," Seren said, her voice turning serious. "Do you ever regret it staying?" Noah looked around. He saw Mia sitting on Aldrich's shoulders as the Emperor walked across the ramparts inspecting the guards. He saw the life teeming in the keep. "Sometimes I miss coffee," Noah admitted. "Real coffee. Not that mud root you guys brew. But regret, no." He touched the locket he still wore around his neck. Inside was a picture of Emily. "She sent me here," Noah whispered. "She knew I needed a pack. I was lonely on Earth, Seren. I was just waiting. Here I am living." Seren leaned her head against his shoulder. "We are glad you are living." 5 years later. The wind in the Whisperwood was warm. The 3 moons were full, hanging heavy and bright in the sky. In the center of the royal gardens, a new structure had been built. It was a playground, but not like any on Earth. The slides were carved from polished obsidian. The swings hung from living vines that adjusted to the weight of the child. And in the center of the playground stood a statue. It was carved from pure white moonstone. It depicted a woman in a doctor's coat holding a shield over a wolf mother. At the base of the statue, words were carved in both the Lupin language and English. Emily Hart, who taught the wolves that love is a shield. An older man sat on a bench near the statue. His hair was peppered with gray now, and lines were etched around his eyes. Noah Hart watched the chaos of the playground. Rowan and Kaya were 8 years old now. They were shifting fluidly between human and wolf forms as they played. They were fast, strong, and loud. "Uncle Noah!" Rowan shouted, hanging upside down from a branch. "Watch this!" He dropped, shifting mid-air into a sleek silver wolf, landing silently on his paws. 10 out of 10 on the landing," Noah called out, clapping. "But tuck your tail next time." Mia, now a tall 11-year-old with streaks of silver hair, dye a trend she started, was sitting with a group of younger cubs reading them a story. A shadow fell over Noah. Aldrich sat down next to him. The Emperor looked older too, the white in his mane spreading, but his presence was as formidable as ever. "The harvest is good this year," Aldrich said. "The pumpkins are coming in nicely," Noah agreed. "I think I finally figured out how to stop the vines from strangling the neighbors." "Good," Aldrich grunted. He handed Noah a small wooden box. "What is this?" Noah asked. "Open it." Noah opened the box. Inside was a bag of dark aromatic beans. "Coffee," Noah gasped. "Real coffee." "A trade ship from the Galactic Core docked this morning," Aldrich said. "I bought their entire stock." Noah looked at the Emperor. "You are the best brother a guy could ask for." "I know," Aldrich smirked. They sat in companionable silence, watching the children. "There is a new case," Aldrich said softly. "In the Western Clan. A litter of 5. They are showing signs of the fever." Noah closed the box of coffee. The playfulness vanished from his face, replaced by the calm focus of the healer. "Are the parents bringing them in?" "They are on their way," Aldrich said. "They are terrified." Noah stood up. He cracked his knuckles. "Don't worry," Noah said. "We have the protocol. Moonwater silver and—" He reached into his pocket and pulled out a bright red foam nose. He put it on. Aldrich chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. "And the keeper of play," Aldrich finished. Noah looked at the statue of Emily one last time. He touched his fingers to his lips and pressed them against the cold stone of her hand. "Peekaboo, Em," he whispered. "I see you." He turned back to the Emperor. "Let's go save some puppies." Narrators closing. History books in the galaxy often speak of great wars, of starships that burn worlds, and of treaties signed in blood. They speak of emperors and conquerors. But in the Chronicles of Lumeris, the most sacred text is not a war manual. It is a simple guide on how to mix silver with starlight and how to cover one's eyes to make a child laugh. They say that sometimes the thing that saves a civilization is not a weapon. Sometimes it is just a father brave enough to look into the dark and promise that the light will return. Sometimes the strongest magic in the universe is just a game of peekaboo.